Well, I mean, this process has been playing out for some time. The administrator has been working his way through a process, and no doubt will be making relevant announcements, when he's in a position to do so.
So is Bain Capital now the new owner of Virgin Airlines?
Well, I mean, that's not a matter for me to pronounce. Clearly it's now going to be a matter for the administrator to advise, what position he has come to as a result of the process that he has been following.
What about that claim from Cyrus this morning saying that they didn't get any returned emails or phone calls? Was Deloitte the right person to go through then? Right company, I should say.
The administrator had the confidence of creditors to go through the process that he's gone through. He started with a relatively long list of potential bidders, and that was whittled down through a process. And this is the way these processes work. I mean, in the end, the administrator had to come to one final bidder with whom to negotiate, and no doubt, he will explain, what he's done and why he has come to the conclusions he has when he's in a position to do so.
Well, Bain says it will honour the $450 million of entitlements that are owed to workers. Do you have any doubt that they will do that?
Well, I mean, you've got to take those sorts of statements at face value. I mean, they are a very substantial business, and they've got, obviously significant capital depth. So, I mean, I've got to take their word for it.
Do you think that, do you think it's quite possible that Cyrus might have been spooked by the Qantas news yesterday?
Look, I mean, I don't think that it's any surprise to anyone that the outlook for the aviation sector is going to be a challenge for some time. I mean, that is not news that has only just emerged. It's very clear that the level of activity, in particular in terms of international aviation, but also domestically, will be significantly lower than what it has been prior to this crisis. So Qantas has made a decision to adjust its size in the context what it expects the likely activity and demand for its services to be over the next little while, and that is what businesses have to do. And I mean, airline businesses clearly are on the front line when it comes to the impact of the coronavirus crisis. That's the same for Qantas as it is for Virgin. I can't imagine that Cyrus would have been taken by surprise by that.
We can be, or try to be, as positive as we can be about the economy, but yesterday's news was a fair dose of reality, wasn't it?
Well, it's very sad news, but it's also the reality that we're looking at. I mean, some parts of the economy clearly have been particularly heavily hit. Aviation, arguably is one of the worst hit sectors of the economy, and we do have to face the fact. We do have to face the facts that over the foreseeable future, the level of activity in that sector is going to be significantly less than what it was prior to the coronavirus crisis hitting us.
Are you even sure that whoever, if it is Bain that takes Virgin Australia now, are you even sure that 6 months down the track it'll still be flying?
Clearly, the bidders that put themselves forward or that expressed an interest and are now pursuing the opportunity to buy the Virgin business would have done all of the necessary due diligence. No doubt they would have developed a business plan to ensure that they've got a model that is viable and sustainable in the context of this crisis. I mean, everybody knows what the environment is going to be over the next little while. And, in the end, investors have got to make judgments on, what they believe is going to be realistically workable. And I can only assume that that's what Bain has done, and that is why they've put forward their bid.
Alan Joyce says more help is needed, more financial help from the government is needed. Will he get it?
Well, look, we've got the JobKeeper program running, which is providing substantial support. That's going till the end of September. For the aviation sector, generally, we've provided significant additional fiscal support and fee relief in place, and that's recently been extended. We are currently considering very carefully on how we most appropriately transition out of the temporary levels of support that's been provided across businesses across the economy. But we're very conscious of the fact that businesses like in the aviation sector are particularly hard hit, and that we need to be very careful in how we calibrate the phasing out of the temporary levels of support. I mean, we're currently making judgments, and as soon as we're in a position to make relevant announcements, we'll make them.
So JobKeeper extension, is that a live option?
Well, we're considering how we can most appropriately and most responsibly phase out the temporary support. I mean, the ultimate objective has got to be that individual businesses pay for the wages of their employees out of their income rather than on the basis of taxpayer support. But we do recognise that some parts of the economy are particularly heavily hit, and we need to take that into account as we make judgments on how to phase out the crisis level temporary support.
Okay, well, when you say phase out, what does that mean? What kind of length of time might that well be? So, if it ends in September, it could phase out be a few months, so it could last into next year?
Well, you're asking me to make announcements in relation to things on which we're still carefully considering how best to proceed.
Okay. If not JobKeeper, what kind of alternative is being looked at?
Well, again, I mean, as I've put to you, we've got a JobKeeper program which is providing unprecedented crisis-level temporary fiscal support. That is coming to an end at the end of September. Clearly, based on the current settings, clearly there is a conversation taking place now on how we can most appropriately transition from that crisis-level support back into business as usual, and over what time period. And when we've made relevant decisions in relation to that, we'll be making those announcements forthwith.
Were you surprised that Alan Joyce, didn't take the option to continue with JobKeeper for those 6,000 staff members, who could have taken that until September, but he decided against it?
Well, Alan Joyce and I guess the leadership at Qantas are making judgments about the outlook for their business, and they're guided by keeping a viable business going in the context of significantly lower demand and activity for their services. So, I mean, it's a business decision, and they've got to make judgments on how to keep the business viable for all of the many thousands and thousands of employees that continue to work there.
Well, he mentioned that international travel won't resume until July next year. Is that your expectation?
Well, I mean, that is what it looks like. It's certainly hard to see it resuming, in the same way as it has been taking place before for a very long time. I mean, even when it does resume, I suspect that it'll resume at a much lower, more subdued level than before. Just
a couple of quick ones before you go, Minister. First of all, Daniel Andrews, he's asked for this Defence Force personnel, and he's kind of backflipped on that. Would you have any idea why he would have done that, and what do you think about it?
Well, we continue to work with all state governments, and in particular, in the current context with the state government in Victoria. Look, I mean, everybody's trying their best to stay on top of this, get on top of this, stay on top of this. I'm not going to be critical here. I mean, these are evolving situations. I mean, the Defence is providing assistance, of course, when it comes to testing activities and the like, and we will continue to engage constructively. We're all in this together. We want to get on top of this. It's not a matter of having shots at each other.
But the ADF is there. Why not use it?
Well, they are using the ADF. I mean, they're using the ADF as
very scaled down,
to assist. Well, again, I mean, these are judgments that are most appropriately made on the ground. We are ready to assist, even as required, and we'll continue to engage with the state, respecting the fact that the state has the lead in their jurisdiction when it comes to make many of these judgments.
Okay, Minister, we'll end on a positive note here. Australia and New Zealand being awarded the World Cup in 2023, for the Women's World Cup. It's going to be pretty decent for the economy, I would have thought.
Well, it's awesome news. It's very exciting. I mean, it is a fantastic boost, and congratulations to all involved. About $500 million injected in the economy on the back of it is what we believe will happen. But I mean, beyond that, it's even beyond the economic boost. I mean, it's just such an exciting prospect to have a world-class event like that coming to Australia and New Zealand. So congratulations to all.